Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Trojan Conquest Live, Trojan Conquest Live 18. This week, we'll be talking about a new recruit haul we had in June. It's amazing. Who's in? Who's next? And a big question that came up. Do air raid offenses doom the defenses that they're supposed to protect? These topics and much, much more coming next. Welcome, everyone. As I just alluded to earlier, today on Trojan Conquest, we're going to talk about the June recruiting with 14 new commitments in the month. USC vaulted from 57th in the nation all the way up to 5th in both the On3 and 247 rankings. So we're also going to talk maybe a little bit later who is likely to commit as well. After this, go ahead and take a look at our poll. Currently, we have a poll up there to give you some options of who you think might be the next commit that might come in. The 4 names I have in there, I don't think really we're in the driver's seat for any of them. I do believe, though, that some people have hinted that we've got a good shot at them, but some of them are quite long shots. So you tell us, who do you think in that poll is most likely to become a Trojan come signing day? Later on, also, Matt and Rick and I will weigh in on Bruce Feldman's piece. He had The Athletic, which goes into the idea that is it a myth or is it true that because of the offense you run, you're not protecting your defense? So in an air raid system, and quite frankly, is USC system, is the air raid that we're running going to make things hard for our defense to be successful in 2024? With that, here's my co-host, Rick. Rick, how you doing today?
Doing great, Tim. Happy holiday 4th of July weekend to you, to all our viewers. Thank you for tuning in. We got a new time, 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's rock it. I'm wearing shades because June was on fire. It's so bright. Fireworks were blinding me, Tim, so I had to throw on the shades tonight. 14 recruits, as you mentioned. USC, as you said, 57 to start the month. We're rocking number 5 and On3 and 247. Still a lot of work to be done, but get on the rocket ship because it's trending. I think we're number 3, Tim, in the Big Ten, number 1 in the Pac-12. However you want to go ahead and slice it and dice it, and we'll talk about it. But the rest of the recruits that we have targeted, a lot of 4 stars, and there's 1 5-star floating out there. So the target list is high, target-rich environment. Gotta love it.
Yeah, and what's really nice about this is going into this month, don't lie, all of you, we're all a little bit nervous about recruiting. I mean, in the end, we knew we would sort it out. We know that in the past, last year when they were doing the recruiting, or kind of late to the game, but I kind of banked on the fact that, they didn't have a full recruiting year. And I was thinking to myself, well, they had a full recruiting year. But just like everything I've seen with Lincoln Riley, and this is always a plan. It just seems like there's always a plan, Rick. It just seems like, they're laying it out and they're playing the game how they want to play the game. And with those huge recruiting weekends they had, bringing in those big time recruits over the past month or so, now we're seeing the dividends of their work.
Absolutely. And it goes from the top down, from Carol Folt on down to Lincoln Riley. But I believe the correct term is moonshots. And USC has been taking a lot of moonshots, hiring Lincoln Riley, going to the Big Ten. By the way, happy 1-year anniversary, USC, to the Big Ten on June 30th. And oh, by the way, a Mountain West team backed out and is staying in the Mountain West because that TV deal is still not done. You need USC on that wall. You want us to build your brand. You got nothing on that Pac-12 TV network. Sorry to digress, but it's the truth. It's been a year. What the heck? But getting back to USC and moonshots, look at what USC is doing. 14 recruits in the month of June. And you know what? They've got a plan. They had a plan for Kynngson at St. John Bosco with the weekend with Peyton Woodyard. Yeah, Peyton Woodyard's a commit for St. John Bosco, but you know what? They're giving it their best chance. And we'll get into it, but how about Deyvid Palepale, the defensive lineman from the state of Pennsylvania, who was crystal balled early in the month to Michigan and Penn State, 2 Big Ten teams. And what does USC do with the relationship with Sean Nua, the defensive line coach, and fully integrated with the coaching staff and what USC has to offer? They closed on that young man yesterday, and that shows you that USC is out there, and anybody that they're going to go for, they've got the mentality like, hey, we're going to take our best shot because we're USC and we're fully loaded right now, and go ahead and take your best shot to compete with us.
Yeah, we're going to get into all of those. Again, this is a really busy week for the Trojans, a very busy week. You're looking at the guys here across the board. I mean, on Monday, we got the news that 4-star wide receiver Ryan Pellum, 5'11", 170 from Millikan High School, the number 7 receiver in the class, number 61 overall, committed. We beat out Oregon for his commitment. Then you also had the next day, 4-star safety Marquis Gallegos, 6'1", 175 from Chaminade High School. Transfer will go in that minute. But he's the number 21 safety in the country. He committed on Tuesday. Again, another head-to-head with Oregon. We'll take that win, as well as from Notre Dame. Then on Thursday, later that day, a 4-star interior lineman, Makai Saina, 6'4", 290 from Martin High School in Texas, number 24 interior offensive lineman in the country, committed to USC. I'll go a little more detail how much I love this guy in a little bit. And then later in the week, you had on Friday, you had Braylon, cornerback, 3-star Braylon Conley, 6 foot, 170 pounds out of Texas. He was a number 42 cornerback in the class. And he committed Friday, which was a close win for this in the home state of Texas. We beat Texas A&M out. We'll go in there as well. There was some drama with Texas A&M with 2 guys we thought we were probably to get this week, ended up going to Texas A&M, but this one was a victory for the Trojans. And then the final person, the 5th ad we had for the last week in June, technically it was July 1st, but we're going to slide them in because it was kind of just the whole June vibe, was 3-star defensive lineman, as Rick just said, Deyvid Palepale, 6'3", 288 pounds from Hempfield, Pennsylvania. He was number 81 defensive lineman. I'm going to tell you guys, he's going to rise. Okay, this guy grew up a USC fan. He originally is from Alaska. About the age of 8, he and his family moved to Pennsylvania. He started playing some football. It was all Michigan about 8 days ago, according to Scott Schrader on 3. He was just signed, sealed, delivered. And I think it was actually Matt was talking about, what was weird about this recruiting class? We were going national, right? We're going into Connecticut. We're going to Florida, going to Georgia. We're going to Texas. We're going all over the place. But where we weren't hitting was in that Big Ten footprint. We were not in the Big Ten footprint. Well, this one right here kind of broke that up by going into Pennsylvania and pulling out a guy that was a heavy lean for, they're talking about Penn State and Penn State's backyard, and a massive, massive lean for the Wolverines. Again, everyone thought that he was going to actually be a Wolverine. So let's start with Pellum. So Ryan Pellum, right here from our backyard, Long Beach kid, great, incredible receiver. This guy's got quick hands as well as quick moves. He gets the ball in space. This guy, you might as well, again, like I talked about earlier, you might as well just chalk up that touchdown, because he's the kind of guy that's going to get open. He's at the perfect mold for that Lincoln Riley receiver, 6'1", 190 pounds. He's gonna get his fair. He's gonna get his looks, but his fair catches. When he gets his catches, he's going to be getting touchdowns. Any thoughts on Pellum, Rick?
This was a significant commit for those that are outside of the USC fan base. If you're looking national, this is a kid that grew up as an Oregon fan. His family. His father is the coach at Millikan. He played at Washington State. His uncle, Don Pellum, has coached for more than 20 years, a lot of that at Oregon and most recently UCLA. And so as the articles came out, he was basically bred as an Oregon Duck. And for USC to get this 4-star wide receiver at a Long Beach Millikan, I think his brother said it the best in post-commit interviews, that the whole experience that USC is offering and the way they delivered it in terms of the education, in terms of the pathway to the NFL, the pathway to your success after your degree, and the connections in Los Angeles, it's a no-brainer. And for him, who's a Washington State former player, and again, in the Oregon family, is huge. And so Ryan Pellum's his own guy, and this was an outstanding commit, Tim. And it said a number of things on a number of different fronts, that USC is back, and we are going to get the best players in Southern California, and we'll talk about it later, and nationally.
Well, and that's you hit on it. The fact that you grew up a Duck fan, and quite frankly, USC was nowhere on the radar earlier this year or last year. There was an absolute afterthought. It just shows you that the inroads that these coaching and the coaching staff are making, getting back into the local. We lost a lot of traction with the previous coaching staff where they just weren't guarding our backyard. And this is just one more example. And I named all the teams that we're going up against, and in the Pac-12. And as it stands, it was a head-to-head competition with Oregon. But if you read what I said something to Matt that he should have on Trojans Wire later this week. As we move into the Big Ten, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with the TV rights deal for the Pac-12, et cetera. I just think that there's going to be a bigger and bigger separation between USC and our former Pac-12 mates. I think a lot of those tight competitions we had with Oregon are probably starting to slip. And you're already seeing that with the traction that this coaching staff has. And I'm really excited. I do know that the Pellum's, you watch him, you watch his film. It's just an amazing receiver, and he's going to be scoring touchdowns for SC. The next guy that we need to talk about here is Marquis Gallegos. He's a 4-star safety. Now, he was at Chaminade, but he is, I think he's going to Sierra Canyon. I think he's transferred. He's going to Sierra Canyon this year. He's a 4-star. What I like about him, what I've seen on his tape, is that he's like that perennial ball hawk. They talk about guy that knows where to be. He jumps routes. He's obviously doing his film room study. He knows where to be, and he just has a nose for the ball. And I can't wait to see what he could do in our secondary. What do you think?
Okay, this kid, I love him. He's amazing. He's about 6 foot, 175 pounds, and he's a Latino. He's from the San Fernando Valley. If you saw his commitment video, he's true to his roots. He's true to his family, his brother, his parents, his grandma, his Mexican heritage. Come on. He had the mariachis in front of the Coliseum to end it up. And let me tell you, if Mexican fighters, it's a bloodbath. And when you believe in something, you fight till the death. And this kid, he's going to put on 20, 25 pounds of muscle, and he is going to fight for USC. He's going to bleed for USC. He is going to bleed Cardinal and gold. He is going to be a favorite of the Mexican American community by the time he graduates. I love this kid, and his upside is unbelievable. And like you said, he's a ball hawk, his ball skills. This is a guy that is, by the time he leaves USC, you're going to be like, my God, that kid was a player. So I'm happy to have him on the team.
Yeah, and you hear a theme also. He's also a physical tackler. When you see him tackle, he is 6'1". He hits with all that 6'1". And the theme you're going to hear me say about these guys, especially this week. I know you guys heard me when I was talking about the offensive line a couple weeks back, when I was just saying just how physical we need to be going into the Big Ten. You're going to see a theme. I don't care if they're a 3-star or a 4-star. What you need to look at is who was offering these kids. When you look later on, Palepale and Conley, these guys are 3-stars, right? But wait till I read for you the guys that they had offers from. So yes, they're a little bit difficult to take that 3-star sometimes for you guys that want to bank everything on how high or how many stars someone has. More importantly, you want to do is you look at, as there's a lot of coaches out there that look at these players and saying, we want you at our school. Here's an offer. And believe me, when you see these offer lists, you're going to be thinking twice about considering them as quote unquote 3-stars. And remember, this is still early in the process. They're going, these guys are going to rise. A lot of these guys you're looking at right now on this list, I am certain, watching the way they play, these guys are football players. They're physical. They're talented. The more and more that they get, now that they're on USC, and they're getting a little more airtime, I'm hoping that they're going to be looking at these scouts, will be looking at them. I'm hoping they will rise in the rankings. Then the next person we had later that day was Makai Saina. What do you think about Makai?
This kid is a road grader. He's tough. He's physical. The thing I like about him is he's got quick feet. He's got a push. He's very good in a phone booth, and he will drive pushing forward, and he will take out his man. That is like his mission. So this kid, once he gets with Josh Henson, he's got a lot of upside, and you're going to need that big, nasty, physical offensive lineman, especially in the Big Ten. So I love his upside. He's got he's got a mentality that you just can't teach. It's an intangible that you have to have for an offensive lineman, that I'm going to put you on your ass. And I'm going to do it once, and I'm going to do it again. And you're going to let them know, I'm going to be here all day, MFer. And that's what I see in this kid. What do you think?
No, that's exactly it. I actually sent out a tweet earlier this week. I really got excited watching. As soon as he committed on Tuesday, I watched his tape. You guys, this guy is just pancaking guy left, right, and center. He's just mauling them. And I just thought right away, I remember last year looking at that 2023 class, there's a guy named Makai Saina, who's also an interior offensive lineman for us. They both of them remind me of exactly who we want to be going into the Big Ten. Inclement weather, or maybe some days we're throwing in some of those gusty winds they have up there, ice cold rain, sleet, whatever we're going to see up there. There's going to be days where we're going to win a game when we can pin our ears back and enforce our will against the front seven of the other team. Having guys like Makai Saina and a guy like Makai, Saina is going to go a long way to helping us to road grade. And of course, these guys are pretty good. I think they're a little bit, they work on their pass blocking a little bit, but as far as the run blocking this guy does, it's just absolutely insane. And I'm more than excited for what's going to happen getting him into our system, getting him into, get him a little bit bigger, letting Benny Wiley get a hold of him. I think that it's just going to be amazing. So then we had the next day. Sorry, we had a day off on Wednesday. Thursday was a day we thought we were going to get some commits. Things didn't really work out for us. But then on Friday, we got a commit, 3-star corner, Braylon Conley. And this guy is another guy. When you watch him tackle with his ferocity that he plays with, it's just he wraps people up. But the biggest thing that I liked about was I was watching tape and I was watching G Greens. You guys are checking out his thing. He had a good breakdown, and same thing with USCJ. Both those guys had a great breakdown, and they talked about the fact one thing is really important with these guys. This guy's man-to-man skills are insane. Double moves, nothing shaking him. He was with these guys, footstep for footstep. I really can't wait to see how he's going to be able to, maybe be that boundary corner and lock that side down, and which makes everything easier for that front seven. How about you, Rick?
Yeah, he came out. He had over 40 offers, major schools. He hasn't played corner all that long. I believe he just finished his second year. He started playing corner as a sophomore, it was revealed. And Coach Dante has had him pegged. And he's a 3-star. He's out of Texas. The kid's tough. And I see so much upside for this kid. And you look at the secondary that we have right now with the existing players and then the players that we're signing. Dante Williams is on fire right now. I mean, he is just amazing. And I can say that for a lot of our coaches, but I like this pickup with Braylon Conley. He's under the radar, but this kid has got so much upside. And you're going to see this kid fighting for playing time. Maybe not this year, but maybe in his second year. But this kid, he's going to go after it, and I'm really excited to see what he can do in 2024 and forward. So
I promise you, I was going to read off for you. So the services are saying this guy's a 3-star, but let me just tell you who is interested in him. Okay, so obviously USC. Then you got a lot of schools in the Pac-12 and the SEC. So I'll start naming them off. So you have Arizona State, Arkansas, Auburn, Cal, Colorado. I'm skipping over some of the smaller schools. Georgia. Let's see. Kansas State, Maryland, Memphis, Michigan State, Missouri, Nebraska, Oregon State, TCU, Texas Tech, Utah, Washington State, Wisconsin. And there are more. I just went over the biggest names out there. When you're getting looks from all these different schools in the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, that maybe you might be a 3-star, but you guys got to be careful. Whenever you look, why was this coaching staff so excited about this guy? You got to take that little step further. And also, I would have to assume that from the tape that I saw and the breakdown that I heard and the analysis, this kid is going to be special. I think he's more and more they see him, he will also be a riser within these ranks. But at the end of the day, I don't care what star ranking he is. I'm excited about the fact this guy has skills, and he is the kind of guy we're going to need to lock down one side of the field for us in the future. So then we had to finally wait the next morning. And this one was kind of a bit of surprise. There were a lot of wink, nudges. I know USCJ was full on telling me, hey, dude, this guy, I got a really good feeling. This guy is going to be a Trojan. This guy's going to be a Trojan. And sure enough, we got the news on Saturday that Deyvid Palepale is going to be a USC Trojan. This guy has a really interesting story. I kind of broke down the fact that he was from Alaska and he moved. And so that they don't really know a lot about him. I don't think that he's, haven't seen him. A lot of these things he's raised also have to do with where you're playing. Are you going to the big man? Are you going to these different camps and stuff? I'm thinking the exposure is the issue with this guy. But he, just like Saina, this guy is a mauler. And when you watch him, it's very rare when you have someone his size to be as quick as he is. Whenever you look at that defensive line, this guy can play outside, inside. He's so strong. He's so fast. I can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah, I was, and kudos to USCJ, because I was watching a live show that he did. God, it might have been like 10 days, 2 weeks ago. And he had Micah Banuelos' dad on. I think his name is Ray, on the show with a bunch of other people. And
I was there.
And yeah. And so he's connected. USCJ is connected not only with the players, but the players' families. And he was talking about Deyvid Palepale being, a Trojan. And this was at the time when he was crystal balled by 247 to first Michigan and then Penn State. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, well, we've got a battle going on. I know Sean New is a great coach. We got him on the visit. He's got the last visit out here. And USC has a chance to do what USC can do, is to show what USC is about with the poly community and the history that USC has. And then you've got Sean New as the coach. I knew we had a good shot, but could we flip them from Michigan and or Penn State? I don't know. But that shows you the depth of this coaching staff, the quality of the university, the high level that Lincoln Riley and the recruiting staff, God bless you, Annie Hansen, all your staff, but the entire university and how we are all moving in the same direction and basically saying, how can you not get your education and play for USC, especially if you're a part of the poly community? And ultimately this young man said, you know what? It doesn't matter that I live in Pennsylvania. I'm going to be playing for USC, and I'm going to play against Michigan and Penn State, and we're going to rock and roll. And he said, we're going to win the Big Ten. And I believe the young man, because we're not going to play for second place. No, we're not. Hey, yeah. We're number 2 in recruiting. Well, actually, number 3 in the Big Ten. Move over Michigan. I think you got 6 or 7 more commits. But now we're actually going to be challenging Ohio State, who's had basically their foot on the throat of Big Ten for the past decade. And we're coming for you, Buckeyes. Yeah, you know us. Yeah, we're the ones who've stopped some of your national championship bids. And we love it, man, because we actually have competition now, the Big Ten versus the Pac-12. And we're very thankful and fortunate to get competition and play in a real conference.
And it's going to be interesting moving into the Big Ten because, again, the style of play, the elements that you have there, you can see that there's concerted effort at USC to beef up here. And Deyvid Palepale and Makai Saina are going to be 2 of those guys. And you did bring up that point, how they were able to sell Deyvid and change him at the very end. Because, again, according to Scott Schrader, he was all Michigan a couple of days ago. And it was also the fact of the school. You guys have to realize this is the second or third time I'm hearing this. They are selling the school. There's a reason why USC is one of the top schools in the country. Forget football. They're selling it because Deyvid wants to be in accounting, and he probably had to run the accounting, and USC is one of the best accounting schools in the country. And so when you have that kind of backdrop, he said I can't remember who it was. Someone said the same thing. I can do everything I can do on the field. And this person was talking about Oregon. I think Deyvid was talking about Penn State and Michigan. He said, I can do all the stuff I could do there, but I also get this USC degree. I also get this USC networking and being a part of the Trojan family. And what they're doing at USC, you brought up Annie Hansen and the rest of her crew, as well as the coaches, are selling the fact that, here at USC, you play here for 3 to 4 years, but you're a Trojan for life. And the networking here at USC, believe me, is amazing. As an alumnus myself, there are so many connections out there. And this way, he knows that regardless of the NFL, regardless of Sean Newell, who's a great coach, let's say he doesn't get the NFL, he knows that he's going to be able to have a secure future. And then I just want to hit this really quick. We had a really generous super chat. Thank you so much. Right hand lead. Beyond NIL, Oregon will have little to offer recruits. Look at their future out-of-conference schedules in the next 7 years. Okie State and Baylor are their biggest games. Yeah, I kind of went into detail. If you guys check out Trojans Wire, I did I had a conversation with Matt regarding, am I really concerned about the recruiting battles we're having? And I specifically was talking about Oregon. We talked about the facilities we were pulling out. What was it, about 3 or 4 weeks ago? That was announced 3 weeks ago. It was announced. That was one of the things they used to have on us. We were late to the game. What's it called? Something Street. I can't remember what their NIL collective is, but they were right on it right away. Phil Knight used all of his money, all of his ex-Nike executives. They got that collective started right away, and they were way ahead of USC. But
Division Street.
Division Street,
yeah.
Now with the the House of Victory, and Conquest Collective and the Tommy Group, USC is right there. So that's 2 things knocked out. They used to talk about the fact that we don't have any development. Well, that was the previous staff. This staff shows, that they do get people into NFL. They, Dante Williams and Nua both show if you come here, they can get you ready for the NFL. So there's another myth knocked out. The last one that we used to get all the time was, well, nobody sees your games. Well, now we're playing at noon, on big noon on Fox, right? And big game exposure. We're not going to be playing in the middle of the night anymore. These guys are going to get full exposure. And so all of that and being in LA for the NIL, I am not remotely worried about anyone. Oregon, thank you, AA Eugene. You guys were great. We wish the best of luck to you guys, but in the future, I'm not worried about Oregon. Rick, any thoughts?
Oh, I think you hit it on the head. I'll just leave it at this. All I remember about Oregon is Dan Lanning was a defensive coach from Georgia, one of the most dominating defensive teams. And, Lincoln Riley's an offensive-minded coach, and so his specialty is offense, and he's been ridiculed, and maybe rightly so, but he's got Alex Grinch running the defense, and the defense didn't hold up last year. But if you're Dan Lanning and you're a first-year head coach and your calling card is you're going to be the SEC West and you're a defensive-minded coach, how do you let Oregon State run the ball 19 times down your throat and you give it up in Corvallis? That's all I got to say. All right. Good luck, son.
Didn't even need to throw the ball, at all. So, and then we're going to give you guys there are a lot of comments in here as well. We'll get to them as soon as we can. Well, actually, let's just hit this one real quick, Rick.
Yeah, let's hit it.
Are we going to have decent linebacking core? I will start you right now. So let me just tell you, I'm assuming you're talking about next year. So those of you guys that aren't aware, in the offseason, there was a huge turnover in the defense. Like Rick was saying, there's a huge emphasis on fixing. Obviously, last year they had a playoff and possibly a national championship offense. However, the defense was nowhere near any of that caliber. So what you're looking at is bringing in linebackers. So we know we have Eric Gentry. The thing you guys remember about Eric Gentry is he got hurt in that Utah game, and he was never quite the same. And he came back. He's a warrior, but he was playing hurt. He had surgery during the springtime. He's going to be back at full, right? Then you have Shane Lee. He was playing with a busted wrist, busted hand. I can't remember what it was, but he was also playing injured most of the year. We brought in Mason Cobb from Oklahoma State. You guys get a chance, go ahead and look at this guy. He was one of the best tacklers in the Big 12. He led his team in tackles. I think it was like 96 or close to 100 tackles. This guy is going to be a difference maker. I think he's starter day one. And then you have Tackett Curtis from Manny, Louisiana, who's going to be coming on. Don't expect for him starting early. It's going to be a difficult spot to get in that middle linebacker position as a true freshman. But man, this kid is amazing. He is. If you haven't seen his highlights, go look at him. There's one thing that was just viral on the internet. He blew some poor kid up. He's big. He's getting a lot of play, saying they're reminded of a certain guy, linebacker from Bergen Catholic in New Jersey, Brian Cushing. Let's let this kid be himself. He's got the size. He kind of looks like him a little bit size-wise, but I think that he's going to bring a lot. Let's not put too much of a tag on guys. Let's just let him come along as a freshman. That core right there is truly amazing. Rick, what do you think about our linebacking core?
I love our linebacking core. As you outlined, Tim, we got plenty of depth now with Gentry, Shitting Lee, Taggart Curtis. You have Mason Cobb coming to solidify it. There's also he stepped up in the Cotton Bowl last year, but Rajon Davis. You got Garrison Madden, who was developing last year.
Really
I'm very
fast.
excited.
Very
I'm very
fast
excited
back.
about the linebacking crew. And hey, I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to take off my Cardinal and Gold rose-colored glasses because every room looks great for the Trojans. But what I'm worried about is defensive line. And sure, we got Deyvid Palepale, 3-star defensive lineman. Put your hand in the dirt. But all the Trojans that know what USC championship football is about is we need more big defensive linemen. We need a rotation of 6, 7, 8 guys. And yes, we did get Anthony Lucas, and yes, we got Bear Alexander, but we need dudes. And when USC and Pete Carroll had dudes, that's when we rolled and we were competing. Teams were afraid of us. They feared us. Lincoln Riley does a great job at getting the quarterback in all the skill positions, but we need the defensive linemen to create that push and attack the quarterback. And until we get those guys in numbers where they fear us, then we will win championships. So I like the fact that we got one, but we need multiple more. We honestly, yeah, we might be going after Mikey Matthews, the number 12 player in the country, wide receiver. I really don't care. We got 2 wide receivers. That's enough. Give me 2 more defensive linemen on what we had. I want big butts. Yeah. I want big butts with big push because we got great. Last year we had 5 offensive linemen and 4 offensive linemen this year. If we're going to go basically win the Big Ten, we need defensive linemen. That's where it's at. So I'm not here, to be a sunshine pumper. Yes, I love what we're doing, but show me defensive line recruiting, and that is the cherry on top. And that's what we need to be successful.
Well, you're sleeping on a couple of guys. Don't sleep on the Jack Sullivan, the transfer from Purdue last year. He's going to be adding some quality depth. And my God, I watched Kyon Bars lift 550,000 pounds the other day. This kid is just an incredible beast. Okay. So I think at defensive tackle, I think we're really solid. I like that we're adding. You're right. I do think in this class, we'll love to see some more. I'm hoping and thinking we're probably going to pick up some people later. We're going to remember, you guys, we still have room for 4 or 5 more high school kids, and they're going to add some people through the portal. So there is room. I think next year we do have the depth. Remember, with the depth, it's not just a depth piece for competition. That always helps as well. But if you have more depth in the interior defensive position, you're not going to get that guy banged up as much. And so they're going to be 3 or 4 deep at the interior there. They're going to hopefully rotate those guys out. Hopefully early on with our easy schedule, the first 6, 7 games, we're going to get guys a lot of breaks in the game. That way, they're not going to have all these injuries. Like I talked about our linebackers, right? We're fairly thin at linebackers. So those guys are playing a lot of reps. And that's how you had issues with Gentry getting hurt, with Lee getting hurt, and other guys probably playing banged up the whole time. If we get those leads like we should, with the great offense that we have, and this improved defense, there should be starters resting in the second half. And so for the first half of the season, hopefully these guys will get rest. So down the stretch, which is a hell of a gauntlet, they'll be able to pull through. Tim,
hold on. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
You named off Jack Sullivan, Kyon Bars. I named off Lucas. I named off Bear Alexander. We are growing that defensive line, but we need to do it. The next step is do it in high school recruiting because we need to load up. We need to have a number of defensive linemen that are going to wreak havoc on the quarterback. Yeah. And so that is the next step. If we solve that piece of the puzzle, then we are going to be dominant and we are going to be competing for Big Ten championships and college football playoff spots every year. And so do we have the coaching staff to do it? Yes. Have we done it at the high school recruiting level? Not yet. But is that the moonshot? Is that the next goal? Yes. Have we done it in the transfer portal to kind of shore up as we move on this year and next year? Yes. But if we get that defensive line recruiting figured out, and we've got the coach who just showed you he could pull a kid from Pennsylvania to the West Coast, then it's game on. And right now, I feel very confident, but that's the last thing we need to do is defensive line recruiting. So Trojans, if we get that figured out, it's going to be good times.
So great question. Thank you, Enos Pitch, for that question. We're going to talk a little bit later about the recruiting cycle on a very special Mike linebacker that we're going at from St. John Bosco. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But before we do that, I want to go ahead. We've had him waiting in the back room for a while. You guys, if you haven't had a chance to check out Matt Zemek's work over at Trojans Wire, he's putting out content daily about the Trojans, anything from expansion over time, talking about recruiting, talking about scheduling, talking about the move to the Big Ten. If you haven't checked it out already, make sure you do. With that, Matt, come on in. Matt, how you doing?
All right. And great to be back on your show. It's great for your show to be back after taking the last week off. So, and a lot going on and a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to move into right now. We just got done talking about the about some of the recruits that are coming in, the recent commits, and also a couple of these you guys want to look at. So right now, you guys, USC is at number 5 in both of the well, at least the two I look at. I'm sorry, I don't look at Rivals or ESPN. I don't know about anyone out there or you guys, but I honestly look at On3 and 247. I've been a 247 person forever. But I'm originally was Rivals when Ryan's site was with them, the USCFootball.com was. Then I moved over with them over to 247. But I'm really starting to fall in love with the On3. I like the way they're doing their rating system. There's subtle differences. So again, like right now I was saying, right now USC is number 5 in the On3. And if you look, it's really close. I mean, you look at Alabama, USC, and Michigan. It's razor thin, really, as far as the differences between and actually even Notre Dame. And it's early, you guys. What it's doing is this is one of the scales. The other one would be 247, and you guys see a theme here. You also have USC up there at number 5. Rick, do you want to talk about the two different polls or the two different rating systems?
Yeah, I think the difference is the 247, the composite, basically amalgamates 4 different, I think 4 or 5 different ranking systems. And they have USC at number 5. And they kind of apply a total number to the commits and their average rating. Whereas I believe On3, as you can see, Alabama, I think was number 4, you said, ahead of USC. They look at the average player ranking and they kind of project that. Like if you look at 247 right now, composite, I think Alabama's 20 or in that proximity. But they have the overall, I think, first or second highest average player rating. So, they have, I think, 10 commits. They get 8 more commits. They're going to be number 1, number 2 in the country. So that's what's happening.
Well, On3, what it does is it takes a look at they take an average of the Power 5 schools, right? And they say, how many does the average Power 5 school have in commits? And I think that number right now is 13. So On3 looks at the top 13 recruits on your board, and then they find the averages, and that's how you place it. So you only get credit for the first 13. When you go over to 247, what they're doing is they take everybody, but it's a descending scale, meaning it's a weighted scale. Whoever's on the top, your best player, they're getting like 0.99, whatever of your weight, or whatever, I don't know what it is, whatever the scale would be. And then it slowly goes down until you get to your 15, 16. So therefore, it doesn't penalize, they try not to penalize the teams that have like 12 compared to 24 commits, but it still kind of does. And that's why I like the On3. They take the average of all the Power 5 schools and they say, okay, this is what the average team has. How many points you have for this many recruits? So it's just two ways of skinning a cat, really.
The thing that I look at is USC, I think their average rating on 247 sports is 91.75. And I think it's number 5 or number 6 overall. And USC's got like 12 to 15 guys they're still going after. And those 12 to 15 guys, now they're not going to get all of them, but that's who their market is, and that's who they're going after, their target list. It's 4 and 5 star. There's no 3 stars that they're going after right now. They're going after, Jericho Johnson, Taylor Tatum, Xavier Brown, Peyton Woodyard, DeAndre Carter, KVA. Those are names that they're going after. So, and those are going to be battles. And when you're a good team like a Georgia, a Michigan, a Notre Dame, a USC, Ohio State, you're going to be able to flip players. And this is where recruiting really shakes out this last 6 months, because we're at halftime right now. It's the beginning of July. You still got to hold on to these recruits, and you still got to go flip. And if you're Georgia, that's what you do. They flip. And you're Alabama, they did that to Notre Dame last year. How many guys did they flip? Notre Dame just lost a wide receiver to Georgia Tech. So it's going to start to happen. But that's what happens, because that's a double hit. Just like we talked about Ryan Pellum. Wow, they didn't get that wide receiver. So Oregon took a hit with recruiting, and USC got him. So I like what the target list is, because that shows you we're not going after just the average players. We're going after the players that are above that 91.75 rating. Matt, anything to add to that?
Well, Rick, I mean, you nailed it earlier when you mentioned that Michigan has 7 more commits in the bank than USC does. So, USC has more room to grow. And when you compare that also with the player rating, and, USC's, more than a full point ahead of Michigan in terms of per player, that, if USC gets up to or close to Michigan's number, USC has a decent chance of passing Michigan. And I would say on a broader level that just if USC gets a top 5 class, like we can debate all day whether, 4 or 3, but like top 5 just sounds so much better than top 7, right? Like it's such an easier selling point, marketing point. So just as long as USC finishes top 5, because I don't think it's getting past Georgia or Ohio State, and probably not Alabama either. Alabama doesn't have the numbers right now, but Saban's going to get the 5 stars and is going to be there at the end. If USC finishes top 5, that's great, right? Like no one should be too overly concerned if USC finishes 4 or 5, 3 or 5. If USC's top 5, like that sends a pretty good message and national statement and represents something to build on. I think the only other thing I want to talk about in terms of recruiting is the Deyvid Palepale case, because, and I mean, Rick, you mentioned, Sean Nua pulling him out of Pennsylvania. Landisville, Pennsylvania is 117 miles from State College, where Penn State is located. So if not Penn State's backyard, it's, like Penn State's zip code. and so that's impressive. But the other thing is Palepale knew that one way or the other, I'm going to play in either the USC Michigan or USC Penn State game in the 2024 season, because those are confirmed games on the 2024 Big Ten schedule. So he was down to USC Michigan Penn State. So he was going to play in one of those, at least one of those 2 games. And so he was going to choose, which side am I going to be on in those games? So when you filter it through that prism, his choice of USC over Michigan and Penn State becomes that much more personal, because he knew he was going to go against the other 2, one way or the other. Michigan versus USC, Penn State versus USC, Penn State versus Michigan. Palepale was going to be on one of those 3 teams playing against the others. That makes his choice of USC so much more of a message than if, say, he was choosing among, let's say, USC, Oklahoma, and Clemson, because he wasn't going to play Oklahoma or Clemson, but he knew he was going to play either Michigan or USC or Penn State, and he picked the Trojans. So again, not the biggest star, not the biggest splash in terms of pure player rating, but the personal nature of that choice really sets that recruiting story apart. Like, I'm not a recruiting junkie, but just being able to look at the nuances of that one really fascinated me. And I would add that USC being in the Big Ten, I continue to see, the more and more I look at this recruiting cycle, the more stories I cover at Trojans Wire, just, what I read, what I see out there, that Big Ten label, that Big Ten identity really is a selling point. Like, I am not convinced that if USC was still in the Pac-12, meaning it was going to be in the Pac-12 in 2024, would these guys from Florida and Georgia and Texas, USC got some more Texas recruits this past week in the wave of new commitments, would these guys from all over the country be coming to USC at the rate they are? I don't think so. I think the Big Ten brand is really adding to USC's momentum here.
And you're right. And before we go any further, hey guys, I just want to take a moment. Please do me a favor. go down, and hit that like and subscribe button. If we're giving you information that's helping you to be able to defend against these Oklahoma Twitter monsters, or information that your Bruin friends telling you that your team has no defense. If you're enjoying the content we provide for you, the best way you can thank us is to give us a like and go ahead and subscribe, because we're trying to get over 5,000 by the end of the month. If you do subscribe, make sure you hit that notification bell. That lets you know if we go live. I'm going to start going live a little more often when we get breaking news. We're also going to try to start up a call-in show. But if you've enjoyed what you watched so far, please do us a huge favor. It's the best way to say thank you to us if you like what we're doing. If you don't like it, that's fine. But if we've shown you something that you didn't know, it's been entertaining, if we made you laugh, please go ahead and hit that like, subscribe button. We appreciate all of you guys being here and sharing your Sunday with us.
And I want to get in a quick commercial for Tim Prangley. Now, obviously, if you follow what I do at Trojans Wire, I'm always taking from these live shows that we do here at Trojan Conquest Live. Like, if you haven't seen the Anthony Munoz interview, long 4th of July holiday weekend, perfect time to see that and also share it with friends and family. Tim and Rick did a fantastic job with Anthony Munoz. So you want to share that. But also, when I'm not sharing clips from these live shows, I'm also just asking Tim some questions about what he thinks about USC football, USC recruiting. Got some stories published today, Sunday, July 2nd, with Tim's inside analysis on USC recruiting and some of the topics of the day. So Tim Prangley is, now part of Trojans Wire. He's not a staff writer. We'll see if we have an opening later in the year. Who knows? But Tim's analysis can be found on the pages of Trojans Wire because, Tim and Rick have both been so generous having me on here, as has Mark Rogers. But I'm trying to return the favor and get the Trojan Conquest Live's inside analysis into the bloodstream of our Trojans Wire content even more regularly. So you don't just want to come to Trojans Wire for what I have to say. You also want to get Tim Prangley's insights as well.
And you guys, I promised you that I would tell you guys that. Remember, I broke down Conley saying he's a 3-star. You're going to see him rise. You're also going to see Deyvid Palepale rise as well. Let me read for you. So I told you Penn State, Auburn. Oh, we'll see who else we got here. Sorry. Oklahoma, speaking of the Twitter monsters, Maryland, Miami, Notre Dame, Ohio State with an offer. It goes on and on. Pitt, Tennessee, Washington, Wisconsin. So don't get freaked out by these 3-star things. Go that one step further. Take a look at the coaches and the coaching staffs that are offering these guys. And I think you're going to be really, really happy. You're going to be a lot happier than some of the fans. Because remember, I told you about a week ago, what was the story? Well, I'm sorry. Sorry, Michigan. Yeah, he was all yours, but he's not yours anymore. And he's now going to be a Trojan. I can't wait to see him wreaking havoc on those defenses in the Big Ten. So then that leads us to what's next. I told you guys we would get to what was going on. This is that lingering story that I keep getting in my DMs. I don't know about you guys, about where is Taylor Tatum going to go. And I'm just going to stick by what everyone else I'm hearing that I respect within the recruiting community. And that's this. Every day he gets away from that big sales pitch where he was told that it had nothing to do with Lincoln Riley, that multi-sport athletes are only an Oklahoma thing, and that Lincoln Riley, the snake, was trying to sell some snake oil. Every day that he gets away from that junk that he was hearing for a while there. And I think Oklahoma has a great program right now in baseball, but there's only one of us that has the national titles. USC has 12 national titles. So I think that we know a little thing about baseball. I like right now what we're doing on our baseball team. Coach Dankowitz is really doing an amazing job with our Trojans. I think that every day that he goes by, hopefully someone drops Deuce Robinson's phone number to him so he could talk together about what the team they're building there at USC. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to turn him, because a lot of people also, I've heard a lot of Trojans out there talking lots of trash about Tatum. Look, this guy is special. I don't know what you guys are saying about him out there. You guys are saying crazy stuff. This guy, you get him. He does everything. He's such a versatile back. He's such a great athlete. If you watch this guy on 7-7s, the way he catches the ball, man, he looks like a receiver out there and he runs like a running back. This is the kind of guy we want in this offense. Matt, what do you think?
I mean, I haven't broken down film or tape as much as you have, but everything that I've read about him, points to being an especially high end prospect with so many different tools, so many different ways to make a difference. So I think Tatum does stand out as like he's not a one trick pony, right? Like he doesn't have one thing. Travis Dye, like he did so many different things for USC. And like, I'm not making a stylistic comparison, but just like we saw the value of Travis Dye for USC because he did so many different things, took on so many different roles and responsibilities. So when you get a guy who is capable of influencing a game and helping a team and helping an offense in so many different ways, you see how that value branches out and affects so much of a team's offense. And so, Taylor Tatum seems to be in that mold, just in the larger sense of being able to contribute in a lot of different ways. And that makes him a very attractive prospect.
Yeah. And so Skip Johnson's taking full credit for Kyler Murray. But there's one thing. So it is coming between the Trojans and the Sooners. But you know what? It's definitely not going to be. It's not going to be going to this guy. So Michigan's out of it. It's all a Sooner and a Trojan battle. Hopefully that we can close the door on basically the propaganda that they're saying they're taking all the advantage away and saying that only here at Oklahoma we could do it. When Lincoln Riley was the head coach, the head football coach, when Kyler Murray was there, and they did have a plan. I'm sure Skip Johnson had something to do with it, but so did Lincoln Riley. Any thoughts, Rick?
Well, the young man is talented. He's got to decide between baseball and football. Is it Oklahoma? Is it USC? And I'm glad that he didn't make a quick decision. He's thinking about it, and he's going to make the right decision. And if it's not USC, that's okay. Good luck at Oklahoma, because we have a great running back room. Last year, Quentin Joyner, Amarian Peterson were signed. We got Brian Jackson out of Texas. We got a Texas trio. And who knows? If we don't get Taylor Tatum, then that's another possibility for a defensive lineman, and I'm all good with that. And maybe we sign a running back out of the portal. But I'm not worried about this coaching staff and their decision-making. It's the willy-nilly USC fans that have been maybe watching for 2 or 3 years. Oh, my God, we can't sign a 4-star, the best running back. Who cares? He's going to do what he's going to do. But, hey, you lift and shift, you move on. You don't worry about it. Keep your glass half full. It's not half empty. If your glass is half empty, go root for another team, because you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And if we don't get Taylor Tatum, I could care less. Give me another defensive lineman. That's how I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
I'd
another
also say, Rick, if your glass is half full, fill it up. And that leads me to the question: what's your 4th of July lager or beverage of choice that you're rolling with for the holiday?
Oh man, I tell you what, there's some good breweries out here, and I actually went to a couple earlier this weekend. And out of Anaheim, I got to go with an Unsung. Anything that they have West Coast or hazy, double is even better. Just like we had on Tuesday, we had a double signing. So enjoy your holiday with your friends and your family. If you're at home, a party. Just celebrate and know that USC is on the right track. Let's just get some defensive linemen, Matt, and then that's the missing piece right now. So
I watched that part of the show before I came on, and I completely agree. And just one thing to tie into the focus on D linemen, like it's pretty valid. It's pretty reasonable to critique Lincoln Riley given his days at Oklahoma. Like he struggled to field nasty defensive lines. And, Rick, Tim, you're both old enough to remember Tony Casillas, that when Oklahoma was really nasty in the 1980s, you had Tony Casillas and those other really big dudes up front. He was a linebacker, but
he was a lineman. Defensive lineman. Sorry. Yeah, he's a linebacker. Sorry.
Yeah. But like Tony Casillas was the nasty, he was the Sean Cody of, 1980s Oklahoma, and like USC needs to load up on that, and Lincoln Riley generally did not do that at Oklahoma, so like that is like the next frontier. So like Rick, you absolutely hit it out of the park with that line of analysis.
Well, I'm gonna give you some breaking news right now, guys. stick with us. Like Tim said, subscribe. We're looking to grow our Trojan fan base, hit our subscribers. I'm efforting right now, and we're going to have one of the all-time great defensive linemen from USC in August. Okay, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's going to be a defensive lineman, and that's what we're working on. And he's going to come on our show, and he's going to talk to us about the similarities in Lincoln Riley's second year and Pete Carroll, what they had going on. And you can ask questions, call in, but I'll let you know right now, that's a slam dunk. My word is gold, and we're going to have them in August. So stay tuned. But we're also efforting a lot of other guys come August, because right now it's a dead period in July. People are on vacation, but we have a lot of things behind the scenes that are happening. And come August, we're rocking and rolling. And August 26th, what is it, Tim? 55 days away. And
yeah,
we're full go.
Yeah, and you guys, here's a really good comment. You know, Tatum will be a nice pickup, but we are deep at running back right now. Now that's absolutely true, and he's going on what Rick said, defensive line for sure. You guys got to remember last year we had Quentin Joyner and Marion Peterson, right? We added Brian Jackson. That is a lot of Texas hoof right there. There's a lot of studs coming in from Texas, some running backs that we are stacked. We would love to add another in Taylor Tatum. But if we miss out on him, it's going to be a big loss, but we are going to be okay. Great point by BD there. And then the last piece here is that linebacker. And, Kynngson Viliamu-Asa is a guy from my neck of the woods. He's a Bosco Brave. This guy is absolutely a piece that I think to shore up what we have going on there. We're talking about young Tackett Curtis, and I was almost going to do it, but I don't want to do it with these kids. I'm getting these visions of, the 2008 linebacking core where you had Ray Maluga and Brian Cushing. And then beyond the fact that they're the same size and one guy's white and one guy's Polynesian, there are a lot of connections in the way they play as well. But the big thing here is the idea, the size. I'm not talking about how they play or who they are, or even the fact that one's white, one's Polynesian. I'm saying just that sure size at linebacker that we're trying to build up here at USC. And adding this piece here, we're talking about we need D-line, we need D-line, we need D-line. Great linebacker play can absolutely mitigate maybe some misses or gaps we might have along the defensive line. So adding him, and we do have some big wills in the backstage, actually. Notre Dame is breathing down USC's throat for him. Ohio State's there. I'm thinking that Ohio State's fading. I could be totally wrong, but I've heard from people that this is turning into a Trojan-Irish battle. Have either one of you guys heard anything about KVA?
Matt?
Haven't heard anything that you haven't heard. That's let me put it that way.
Rick?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but I'll tell you what. This is a huge commit. Whoever can get KVA. It'd be huge for USC. Now, I know they play different positions. I know it's a different era. But this, to me, is a Sean Cody type of signing. If we can get him to commit. And here's the reason why. Yes, Sean Cody was the number one defensive player in that class back in 2001. And, KVA is a linebacker. I understand they play different positions. And KVA is like a top 100 player, 24/7 sports composite. But he is a linebacker. He's a position of need from St. John Bosco, a school that for whatever reason USC hasn't been able to attract top talent, much less on the defensive side of the ball. And he was leaning towards other schools, much like all the other St. John Bosco players in years previous. Again, as you mentioned, Tim. Leaning towards Notre Dame and Ohio State before USC seriously made a push a few weeks ago publicly, but I know they've been working behind the scenes to recruit him, obviously. But KVA would send a message that, wow, okay, something's going on with that defense when you add them to who they've already signed in Marcellus, Williams, and Braylon Conley, and they're going after Peyton Woodyard. And then you have Dakota Fields. So he is a linchpin And it's going to be interesting because even if he does commit to USC or to Notre Dame, it ain't over. Not until December or even February.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the way, if you look at, we're talking, how much are we talking about offense? I believe we had some great offensive ads, but we're just talking defense, the defense. You brought up Woodyard. We talked about Xavier Brown as well from modern day coming over from the secondary. This defense, this high school class we have coming in here, this right here to me is our crown jewel, though. I mean, I do think this is a piece that we really, really need. I'm not sure if you guys caught this, but I don't know how much you guys were on Twitter, but this week, out of the blue, way after he set the tweet out when he came to visit, Lincoln Riley sent out a tweet that Kynngson put up there saying what a great time he had on the trip. And what people were kind of sitting, the little tinfoil hat people, I was one of them, sitting back saying, why would he tweet this out like over a week after the visit? And I don't know if that was a wink, nudge, whatever. I'm hoping this will be our Christmas present in July. I believe he's going to be making a decision very soon. A couple people I didn't add on here was Mike Williams. I think that's a hell of an uphill battle. So there's some points looking that we might get the wide receiver out of Georgia, correct? I think he's a heavy Tennessee lean. But again, here's your 5-star receiver for the class. I wouldn't count Lincoln Riley out of any race. I'm just thinking this one might be our reach. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Tim, it's funny you mentioned about that tweet that Lincoln Riley sent out. I saw that, and I did a little quote tweet with a couple eyeballs and a fight on. And within a minute, the first person to like that tweet, none other than KVA. So, he's out there, he's on social media, and I was like laughing that the first like I got was from this young man right here. So, people are watching, right? Because he is important. I think he's feeling it. I think he's seeing what's going on with USC, the coaching staff, and we're gonna have it's gonna be a battle, like I said, all the way through December and February. Matt, what's your take?
Well, just Tim talked about at Trojans Wire about recruiting in the Midwest, and how in the past when USC was involved in a recruiting battle that would have Midwestern teams, such as this one with KVA, okay, so if Notre Dame was involved, okay, well you're gonna have to play the Irish every year, but now and this references Ohio State. And maybe it is down to USC and Notre Dame, but still, like Ohio State's still technically in the picture. Being able to win this battle for KVA, if USC can do it, like USC is going to be playing Notre Dame and Ohio State in 2025, and every 2 years, or at least every other year with the Big Ten schedule. So not only do you want KVA for what he brings to your team, but you don't want him going to a Big Ten competitor. So like that's new, right? Like in 22 years ago, the idea of a big recruit going to Ohio State, well, you certainly wouldn't want it, but you're not going to be playing Ohio State on a regular basis. Now USC will be. So that's an added dimension to this, and something that Tim talked about at Trojans Wire.
And listen, again, thank you all so much for being here. We have over 208 people here on the line right now. Thank you for taking the time out of your Sunday to join with us. We're trying to give you guys the best Trojan content we can provide. Rick just dropped the hint that we're going to be getting a Trojan legend defensive lineman sometime, hopefully in August. We will continue to try to get you some of the best. We already brought you Hall of Famer Anthony Munoz. We've had John Jackson on the show. We really want to be able to roll in these people and say, hey, we got a show going on with a bunch of great loyal fans that want to hear from you. We want to get to 5,000 by the end of the month. If you guys have enjoyed, and remember this is really what shows us we're giving you content you want. When you subscribe and like, that means that you are actually enjoying what we're doing. We know we're doing the right way. You're giving us an idea of what we need to do going forward. So again, if you are enjoying the content, if we are providing quality information to you, please take a second, hit that like button, subscribe. I appreciate all of you guys being here. We really, truly, really, truly appreciate it. So then we got to move because we're starting to get long in the tooth here. Let's move on to this article really quick. Recently in The Athletic, there was an article that discussed the problems with having an air raid offense and the pressure, right, that offense is going to put on a defense. And so Bruce Feldman came out with this article, very well written. If you guys are, I don't, if you're not subscribed to Athletic, I don't know what you're doing. Morales has some great articles about USC in there. There's some good stuff there too. But Bruce Feldman talked about the fact that the air raid puts possibly, there's a couple of reasons why the air raid causes issues for a defense. And I just want to talk a few minutes with Rick and with Matt. Matt, I'm not sure. Have you read the article?
Have not.
Okay. Rick, you read the article, correct?
Yeah, and Bruce brings up some good points, right? With different defenses for different teams that run the air raid or a variation. Something that I brought away from the article, he brought up a point when Alex Grinch was defensive coordinator up at Washington State under Mike Leach. One of the challenges when they were running their defense was they didn't have really a tight end to practice against, so they threw a linebacker in there. And I thought, wow, okay. That seems kind of odd that you're trying to simulate a defense when you don't have a dedicated tight end to run the offensive set. So what does that do? Okay, and you got a lot of experienced head coaches in the Pac-12. I think there was another article that came out, Tim, that said there were some unnamed Pac-12 coaches that still aren't sold on USC's defense even after all the signings in the transfer portal. But let me take you back to the Utah USC game in Salt Lake City. Okay, maybe Kyle Whittingham, 18-year head coach, saw some deficiencies with the USC defense, and hey, can you cover a tight end? Okay, and the first half, Dalton Kincaid had a few catches, but in that second half, he kept on going to it, and they couldn't stop Dalton Kincaid. And he had 16 catches for over 200 and some 30-odd yards, and he became a first-round draft pick. And so when I was reading the article, that little point stood out. And guess what? Luke Musgrave and Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, unfortunately, Luke Musgrave, their tight end, was hurt and couldn't play. But, they have a tight end. And Mike Meyer from Notre Dame? He had a great game against USC. So USC is going to have to show that they can stop the tight end. They got to make that adjustment. And so, yes, there are some things that in terms of Georgia goes hard in practice. That is something that's going to have to be solved in terms of moving forward and how physical the defense can be against practicing against, let's say, an air raid type of offense. Tim, what did you take from that article? I think you might be on mute.
He did a fairly balanced job of presenting both sides of the fence. Sorry, I had some guy blasting Van Halen driving down the street. So he did a very balanced job of taking both sides. A couple things though. I mean, this is what goes in. People get confused on, they go air raid and they want to put everyone in one tight little cubby hole, right? Air raid, this is the air raid offense, and they're all like this. They're all Mike Leach. They're all gonna be empty backfield. They're gonna sling out slot, they're just gonna throw the ball 5 wide. They're gonna go nuts. That's not the case. And when he pulled up the stats about, basically said grim picture about teams that run an air raid, he talked about Louisiana Tech, North Carolina, North Texas, West Virginia, and Houston. There's a theme there. And I'm not to crack on any of those teams I just named, but we're not talking highly deep talent pools and the defense and the front seven, et cetera, on those teams. And that's why you had to pull, and they probably don't have the double tight ends, big all-American tight ends, or even all-conference tight ends. So you got to pull a linebacker over on scout team to run and pretend you're a tight end at Washington State because you don't have the talent. What they've been saying, and what Lincoln Riley was very clear. He said 2 things, by the way. I see a little Oklahoma guy in the chat. Listen up really tight here. He said right away, I'm not going to make any excuses. This is not a rebuild. We're going to go win and try to win a championship. And damn, he almost did. Brett Venables, not so much, Hank. But in year 1, he threw down the gauntlet and he almost won. He almost made the playoffs. And they weren't making excuses. But he did say this. He said, this is probably going to be the I don't use the word worst, but probably the least talent deficient squad we're going to have here. But he didn't run and hide from that, Oklahoma. He said that we're going to go out, we're going to go try win a national championship. And again, they had a great run at it, Oklahoma, but they came up short. And I think in this article, talking about Louisiana Tech, you has examples of why the air raid doesn't work, and you bring up the defenses at Louisiana Tech, North Carolina, North Texas, West Virginia, and Houston. It's probably not going to give you the best view of what actually is going on at USC. And USC we just talked about the whole show, talk about how we're bringing in through the portal and through high school recruiting some of the best, some of the most physical defenders in the country. And in the article, he does a great job talking about how you say there's a misconception that they don't tackle. They absolutely do live tackling. It has nothing to do with being soft or anything like that. The issue you might have, again, we were talking about with tight ends, but USC does have tight ends. They will be able to have us run a scout team. That's how it's done, you guys. There will be a scout team running. They'll be going up against whatever the other team is running. That's how it works. They're not going to be practicing against an air raid, getting ready to go play in, go up to Eugene or go to play the Utes at home, right? They're not going to do that. And one more thing about this article, I wanted to say in the chat, how many more times do you guys think that Georgia threw, how many more times did USC throw the ball last year on average than Georgia? How many more times? So if you had to guess, 60, 70, 75 plays in a game, how many more times did USC on average throw the ball than Georgia? Any guesses in the chat? How about you guys, Rick? Matt, you guys want to venture a guess?
I would say USC on average threw it 4 more times a game.
3 or 4?
4.
Matt, 4 more times?
I'd probably go a little bit higher.
Okay. So last year, USC threw the ball 36 pass attempts per game, right? Alabama with 34 and UCLA with 34. Penn State, Georgia, and Utah, 32. So it was exactly 4 times. Rick, you are a genius. To give you another example, Ohio State threw the ball 31 times, LSU 34 times. So this idea that this is a pass-happy offense, just throwing the ball all over the place. Yes, they do score fast. You know why? Because they have dynamic players on the outside, and they got a guy who won the Heisman Trophy in Caleb Williams. So we can sit here and talk about it's the offense and this and that. And you know what? Look at that Tulane game. It did not turn out the way we wanted to do. But, things towards the end of that game were weird. That game was wrapped up really with a couple minutes left in the game, and just they didn't take care of the ball, and it ended and they lost. But if you watch, Rick and I talked about this during the post-game show, they really controlled the ball. There was a concerted effort to run and eat clock in that game, and they were able to do that. So I think you're going to continue to see that. I think with the offensive line that they're showing, they're getting guys that are maulers. You're going to see the ground pound game that we'll be able to play in the Big Ten. But at the same time, USC has the kind of players down the outside that are going to score quickly. So that's what this article is kind of talking about. I think it was a fair job. If you guys get a chance, please go and check it out. It's in The Athletic. And as a Bruce Feldman piece. And sorry, Matt, talking about competitors, but it was a good article. So
no problem. And in terms of, so you having fleshed out the article, again, I haven't read it, but you seem to flesh out all of its major points. I think the thing to say is that, this goes back to what Rick said about the defensive line. Like, if you have a nasty defensive line, we're not talking about compatibility with the air raid and whether, practices and against the offense, are going to set you up or not. If you have a ton of bad dudes on your defensive front, like, that discussion goes away. And the other part here is Alex Grinch. This is a prove it moment. Can he make use of the improved depth, and can he make use of what Benny Wiley is doing with the strength training? That's something you've been noting, Tim, in the offseason, that guys are thicker, that the guys are bigger. So it all goes to, can Alex Grinch make all of this work? And in terms of just USC's defensive coaching staff on the specific point of player development, like what Sean Nua did with Aiden Hutchinson at Michigan, like that is one of his biggest bona fides, one of his the most impressive parts of his portfolio. What about the linebacker room? What about the secondary in terms of the level of player development that takes place this season under Alex Grinch? That's really, in many ways, going to be the central question of USC's whole season, the player development that goes on at the linebacker level and in the secondary. Because I think Nua is going to take Bear Alexander Anthony Lucas, those other guys, and he's going to do what he can, though he doesn't yet have the level of depth that Rick was pointing to. But still, like Nua, I think, like I have complete confidence in Nua. It's really at the linebacker and in the secondary, player development, and Grinch having the scheme and being able to move the pieces around so that USC gets what it needs on defense this year. That's going to be so important. And if hypothetically we get in 2023 Alex Grinch really developing players and the linebacker and secondary coaches getting first-rate player development there, man, this thing's going to be set. This thing's going to be set for great growth. And but if not, then Lincoln Riley's going to have that really big decision to face in December, a decision we all hope he won't have to make.
Yeah, I have a lot of faith in Manning and Odom. I think that they really. I like the way we rushed. Well, I mean, we had they had a great season, and there were it wasn't just we weren't just loading up on interceptions. We were also loading up on sacks, and there were a lot of, forget the sacks. There was a lot of havoc in the backfield. They need more and they need to improve it. I get it, but that's going to come with the players. And I'll tell you what. Talk about getting that feather in the cap. I've talked about that for weeks now. If somehow Corey Foreman can light fire, I know I'm pulling for that kid more than anything else. That's Sean Nua is going to be able to hang his hat on that for a couple of years, because that kid came in highly touted. And I know he's working his ass off, but for some reason he just hasn't broken through. I just have this feeling. I really think he's working there, and then if just for whatever reason, and Tuya Pupu, if he also gets in there and he starts, after all of his injuries, moves to the defensive line, now he looks like a defensive lineman. These are all things to be great things for development for Nua, and I fully agree with you. This is a put up or shut up year. They now have the pieces. Then that leads me into speaking of the pieces, really quickly, we just have to remind those morons over at the NCAA that it's now been 4,666 days since you took Reggie Bush's trophy away. It's his Heisman Trophy. And the tragedy about this as well is, I'm not saying two wrongs make a right, et cetera, or whatever, but there's guys walking around with Heismans, right? Cam Newton, that clearly were paying to come to school with Newton, or we're like bringing trophies, and they still have theirs. And yet this alleged, and you know what my favorite part about this is has to do with Reggie get his trophy back. My favorite Paul D BS Missy Convoy crap that I had to hear. Well, USC should have knew or should have known. They literally couldn't even prove this stuff. And how they let Cam Newton's family off, we really can't prove it. So here's the thing, Baker. You have really one opportunity. You didn't cause this mess, but can you just put a shred of credibility back into the NCAA and handle this thing so we can all move on? And that's really it. I know, Matt, you probably have to go, but we're going to take some calls and answer some questions unless you want to hang out.
With you're starting an hour later, so like dinner's already done, so I'm free.
Right?
This is better.
Yeah, well, with that then. So you guys, I have the link in the chat. We're going to stay on here probably for about another 15 minutes. If you guys want to call in, just a great lively group. You guys, I am so grateful for you guys all being here. I know you have lots of opportunities, lots of things to do on a Sunday night with your families on this great 4th of July weekend. We're celebrating our independence. You could be anywhere but you're here with us. Thank you so much. Please take this opportunity. I've got, you can deal with me, but really we got some smart people up here. If you have questions about USC, these two guys can nail it for you. So it's really easy. You're going to click on that link. You're going to join the show. It's going to ask you for your name. You do not have to put your camera on. You can turn your camera on if you want to be shy. That's totally fine with me. I know I've got a face for radio. You probably do too. But so you don't have to do it. But we'd love to hear from you guys. We're opening it up. We have one caller right now, and I know what he wants to talk about. I'm pretty sure. Will ND.
What's going on, guys?
How are you doing, sir?
I'm reeling, man. That Justin Scott commitment to Ohio State was painful, but Irish really got to bounce back with KVA and Gerby Lambert to have a decent recruiting cycle this year. It's been a bit of a sad recruiting cycle, but
well, I've already explained to you that KVA is coming to the Trojans, so you can.
Hey, man, I mean those Bosco guys, they could help us out a bit. Hopefully,
That tweet will, unless he's just trolling his own fan base, which I doubt he's doing. That's kind of odd he'd come out with that. And there's a lot of the Bosco guys, especially Marcellus Williams, saying, come on, guys, hurry up, let's go. You know where you're coming. I think that we're going to get some presence, and one of them is going to be KVA. The other one's going to be Xavier Brown. Talk about a defensive halt, man. This could be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Anything about the Trojans, Will?
Yeah, also about that article that you guys talked about. I think it's more about time of possession, like just giving your obviously depth is going to help with that a lot, but I think just like having more time of possession or like keeping it at least like 60-40 will really help the Trojans and Lincoln Riley if he wants to succeed. But the depth, as you said, helps for sure. But just having two plays scoring, then giving it back to your defense, like that might wear down the defense a bit. So I definitely think for sure, like keeping time of possession will help a lot.
Yeah, you caught me. I mean, that's where I cheated. I went to straight plays.
Yeah,
and you're right. It's the time of possession, which really, I mean, it is reps though too. I mean, the plays do count as well. But yeah, you caught me in the fact that USC does score fast, and that might be a function of let's just say it. We play Arizona's defense, right? They're not exactly, not that USC was anything special, but Arizona isn't anything special. So we were scoring fast. They may change as we, we'll see those Big Ten.
It might be totally different next year with Malachi Nelson. You never know, but.
I want to jump in on this point, Will, and for everyone who's watching here at Trojan Conquest Live, obviously time of possession is very important. I would say that time of possession for USC is going to be particularly important, not so much in terms of how much the offense controls the ball, though, like that's going to matter in some games this season for sure. But it's really more of the defense not allowing a 7-minute clock-chewing touchdown drive to your Irish and Sam Hartman on October 14th, or in the other really big games of this season, the Utah game 1 week after the Notre Dame game. It's really the time of possession is going to be, can the defense get Caleb Williams enough snaps, be able to put up the points to win games. And in terms of USC's offense, again, like I keep going back to what Rick said about the Utah game in Salt Lake City. When USC got up 14, second quarter, had a chance to really put the boot on the throat and just couldn't mash the ball to put that game away. The specific point of emphasis, though, it goes back to the Steve Spurrier method at Florida. You throw early to get the lead, and then you run the ball to protect the lead. Can you so USC will need to score quickly at the start of games to establish the advantage, but assuming USC can do that on a relatively consistent basis, then comes the real test. With a 14-point lead, such as what USC had against Utah and Salt Lake City, if USC gets up 10 over Michael Penix in Washington, if it gets up 12-13 over Bo Nix in Oregon, can you then run the ball when the Ducks, Huskies, Utes, whomever are stacking the box and they're trying to get back in the game? Can you still mash it down their throats and just take the life out of a visiting crowd, get the lead up to 20 by also taking 6 or 7 minutes off the clock? Can USC do that? That's really what we need to see. That's really the next frontier. But the idea that USC should be ball control minded the whole game, no. First quarter, get that 14-0 lead. Go, play Star Wars for a little bit. But then when you have the lead, can you then play ball control and just squeeze the life out of the opposition? That's really a more precise way to look at time of possession from the vantage point of the USC offense in 2023. And that's
a big thing. Jumping on a team early and getting them behind, taking them out of their game plan. I mean, there's a lot to be said for a quick scoring team like USC has. You go up 14-17, and that championship game until Caleb got hurt. How different would that game have been if SC went up 21-0 at that point? I mean, he pulled up and then they settled for the field goal. But I mean, getting out in a big jump like that and getting all over a team, that's how you get them out of their game, and that's when the real turnovers happen.
Matt, you bring up a great point. And USC's been building their offensive line the last 2 years, 23 and 24, to do just that. Is they get these road graders and they close out games with running the ball. Hence, the 1980 Rose Bowl with Anthony Munoz and Charles White against Ohio State. Yes, I understand that was the Rose Bowl, and it's an unfair advantage because it's our backyard. But flash forward to 2009 with the freshman quarterback at the shoe, down again by a few points, and a fourth quarter drive to win the game 18-15 in the shoe. The most dominant team in the Big Ten for the past decade. I think it's undisputable. But USC has done well with Ohio State. When they have the horses, they can block, and they're at peak efficiency with their offensive linemen and a quarterback, the running game, and the wide receiver talent. And that's what's building right now. And that's why if you're a Trojan, oh my God, it's a beautiful day. Will, what do you think, brother? Can you feel it?
I have my retort here. Talking about Matt and talking about Steve Spurrier's Florida teams. That reminds me of the 1992 Sugar Bowl against when Lou Holtz's Irish underdogs heading into the Superdome. You know, Florida's quarterback Shane Matthews set passing yards record in that game, and you know they got up early with the pass, could not run the ball against the Irish, and the Irish eventually wore them down, and the bus went off. And
wheels on the the wheels on the bus went round and round over Florida. Jerome Bettis had a real party. Yep.
And they call Notre Dame running back Audrey Gaston a baby bus. So we're hoping that the Irish can keep that rolling around in South Bend against the Trojans. But we'll see. But definitely excited for that game. Excited for the Ohio State game, and excited for the game of Death Valley this upcoming year. But yeah, always love coming on this show, guys. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you, Will. We appreciate it. Well, hey, listen, we're going to lean heavily to you once the season starts. We'd love to hear you know, you guys, by the way, Will has his own channel. Will, you want to pump that channel real quick?
Yeah, I'm going to be uploading some content on that soon. I'm going to try to get interviews with some people, talk about reviewing team schedules, seeing how I think they're going to do. Best case scenario, worst case scenario. So, yeah, keep it locked on my channel. I got my computer all fixed up and stuff, so I'm ready for that, ready for the season.
Will really knows his Notre Dame, but you know what's amazing? This first, being a young guy like he is, he's got an incredible knowledge of college football history. I'm gonna start calling him Little Mark Rogers pretty soon, or little Zemek. I'm not sure which one I'm gonna go with, but you're an amazing guy, and thank you so. We really appreciate you coming on our show as always.
Yeah, a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for letting me come on.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Will.
And then Alex, I just want to hit the super chat really quick. Again, thank you so much for supporting the channel, Alex, with your $9.99 super chat. We really appreciate you being here, first of all, and the fact that you want to give us a little bit of money. I really appreciate that. I know a lot of people, you know, money's tight and stuff, but listen, if you guys are enjoying the conversation, if you guys are enjoying this show, we really would just ask what dig. We're trying to get to that 5,000. If we're providing you content that you actually find entertaining, laughing, you're finding information you could make fun of your Oklahoma friends with, please feel free to hit that like and subscribe button so that you guys come back here. It's the best way to let us know that we're actually giving you guys the stuff that you want. But number one, also, I'm seeing we've been averaging around 200 people in the chat. We're really grateful that you guys have stopped by here and been here with us. We're running out of time. I'm going to hang out for a few more minutes, go over some of the comments that I've highlighted, and then we're going to get out of here. So if you do want to call in, your time is shrinking. Go ahead, hit that link. It's in the description section if you want to talk to us. Just a couple quick more. We're starred.
Hey, I want everybody in the chat to give it up for Mr. Tim Prangley today. He's playing hurt. He's not been feeling well the last couple days. And Tim,
I'm a mess.
You've rocked it out, man. You've pulled it off, and congratulations, dude. You sucked it up, and an amazing show, my friend. Thank you.
Well, there's no other place I'd rather be on a Sunday than with you, Rick, and with Matt and a bunch of Trojans. And really, I see lots of great college football fans out there. There's a good majority. I see Buckeyes out there. I see Wolverines out there. I see Bruins out there. I even see a Sooner who can't get over fingernails, but we're going to ignore some of his even stranger comments that he's had. But I appreciate all of you guys being here. It's just an amazing opportunity. We all love the Trojans. Imagine when actually imagine when the pads go on and people start hitting each other. You know, we're getting close to media days. Fall practice is right around the corner. You guys, it's going to be fun. We're trying to give you guys the best news and the best interviews we possibly can. So thanks again for being here with us. Dante is tearing it up. I mean, Sean New is doing a job. You know, Josh Henson's doing great. But Dante Williams is absolutely crushing it in secondary recruiting. If by some way he's able to land Zabian Brown and then flip Woodyard, we're talking about an epic secondary haul if those two come in. I think we have a pretty good chance at Zabian Brown. I know Woodyard played with Williams, and if we do get Kynngson, that they all played at Bosco. But I'll be interested to see. What do you think, Matt? Do you think we land Zabian Brown and Wood? I know you don't like to do this game, but I thought I'd ask you anyway.
Well, I would just say, if you can get one of the two, like that would be pretty substantial because, there's already been, Dante Williams has already done so much to recruit in the secondary.
Yeah.
So like some people will say, can we get both? But I would just say, wow, if you can just get one of those two, that's still pretty significant in terms of raising the ceiling for that secondary. So, people want everything. Let's just continue to build. I think that's the thing. Getting one of those two would be a terrific achievement in my mind.
Well, Viliamu-Asa, he is actually has a great connection with Coach Williams. Going back to the previous before this staff got here, it's actually he's talked a couple of times that he's built up a relation with Dante Williams and how he does feel that connection. So if we do end up getting Kynngson, a big part of it is going to be Williams, even though he's not a linebacker. He's not. I'm assuming that Odom is the one that's probably his primary recruiter. I'm sure Dante Williams has been all over this one as well. So that's just another thing. We got to thank that guy because he's been all over everything.
Just want to say 66 Lucky Dude has been mentioning this repeatedly. Is USC over recruiting the secondary? Simple answer, no. Like any significant reinforcements USC can get on defense, bring them on. And if it happens to not be on the defensive line, I mean, USC I don't think is in a position to be overly choosy just yet. Maybe, after a third or a fourth year of the Lincoln Riley regime, maybe we can have that conversation. But USC has to establish its defense, right? Let's be clear about that. USC has to establish a much higher floor before we really talk about ceilings and whether recruiting's being overextended at any defensive position group. The more the merrier. Let's just get that player development piece. As long as that is in place, then that means that USC's defense is going to be significantly better.
66. Look, I know there's tons of great Sooners. I just got to mess with all the ones that harass me. So I listen. I know there are a lot of great Sooners there in the Mark Rogers community. I'm not talking about Sooner fan, but you guys, I'll be very clear. I'm not talking about Sooner fan. I'm talking about Sooner Twitter fan. That's a different breed. It's a different subspecies that I don't think has quite evolved yet. We all know that our fan base, believe me, if you guys have been on USC Twitter, we got our own, we got guys eating our own players. It makes me sick to my stomach. So every village has their idiots. So 66, I think you're a Sooner. I don't know if you're not, I'm sorry, but I think you might be. I'm just saying that we all have all of our cousins we try to leave in the back shed, right?
I saw a comment from Jackson Johnson. Just want to say the second episode of his new show, The Jacksonian, is going to be airing, I believe, on Monday, Jackson, if that's right, if you're still here. So, hey, everyone, check out the second episode of The Jacksonian. He had me on for the first episode. So want to support Jackson's work as he develops his brand and his product.
Well, you guys, I think that is going to do it. Listen, we'll be back here again on next Sunday, 6 p.m., you guys, 9 Pacific. I am going to be going live. I know Rick has something in the works for you guys, something special project he's working on tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern time. Matt Zemek will be here with Mark Rogers, coming right back again with their own different spin on USC news and USC football. Make sure you're checking that out. We really appreciate everyone. This is my last pitch, you guys. I'm so sorry I've done it a couple of times, but I really want to get to that 5,000. I know there's some people out there. Most of you guys have had a good time. If you haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe. You guys are absolutely awesome. We're so grateful to have great, loyal viewers like you guys. If you could go ahead and go into the comments section afterwards and just leave a comment. It really helps out the show. And I really want to know who do you think we're likely to get? Tatum, or are we likely to get Kynngson? Which one do you think we're going to get? Go ahead and leave us that comment in the comment section. Once again, you guys are awesome. And everybody, remember, they're building something here. And don't let the media tell you any more about the defense. We gave you guys lots of information about what Lincoln Riley's doing defensively for this team. Don't let anyone in the national media tell you, hey, Lincoln Riley doesn't care. Lincoln Riley doesn't care about defense or the fact that we don't have a defense. I think everybody that's here heard enough. We are going to shock the world defensively. I'm looking at Matt's face. He thinks I'm nuts, but I do absolutely think that this team turns around. We're looking at a top 30 defense. I'm going to call it right now. I think we do. And if we do, we're going to be a playoff team.
I don't think you're nuts. I just think we need to see it. It needs to be proven. That's all.
And I'd love to see it. That starts really soon in late August. For Matt, for Rick, thank you guys so much. Everybody have a great week and fight on.